Hey, everybody. Welcome to this episode of the Millionaire Maker Show. I am your host, Lindsay Anderson, and today I have a returning guest, Miss Tish Times. Now, I love to have Tish on the show because we talk so much about sales and the importance of sales and understanding sales skills. And sales is really the engine that runs your business. So it's a hot topic around here. And Tish and I agree on so many things when it comes to sales. I think you're going to really enjoy this episode with her. It's a rapid fire questions around all of your biggest sales questions, from how do I prepare my audience for a sales call? What questions do I ask on a sales call? What's my opening question on a sales call? And how do I deal with the objections at the end of the sales call? We get into it today on the Millionaire Maker Show with this very special guest. But before I hop into that, I want to make sure that you are aware of my upcoming workshop. If you head over to lindsayanderson.live, you will be able to sign up for my upcoming workshop. If you really enjoy all of the strategies that I share here on the Millionaire Maker Show and you're ready to really implement those into your business, I am hosting a free workshop where I will share with you my simple system on how to get more sales from social media. It's step by step. It's a powerful workshop, and all you need to do is head over to lindsayanderson.live, register your seat, put it on your calendar, and join me. You'll leave this workshop with step-by-step information on how to generate more sales with social media today. And it's the real stuff. It's not the flash in the pan. I'm going to teach you how to make a trending audio reel. We're talking about how to post on social media like a business owner, get those high quality leads off of social, and for you to be able to make sales. So, lindsayanderson.live. Now, let's hop into my interview with Miss Tish Times.
Welcome to the Millionaire Maker Show, a podcast helping entrepreneurs scale their businesses online to create more time, more money, more freedom, and more impact. Now, with over 20 years of business building, coaching, and consulting experience, here's your host, author, speaker, and creator of the Millionaire Maker Funnel, Lindsay Anderson.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to this episode of the Millionaire Maker Show. I'm so excited to welcome back somebody that I've featured before, Miss Tish Times. Now, Tish is a sales expert. She knows how to make sales. She runs her own sales programs, and her and I can talk all day long about sales. So that's exactly what we're going to be doing today on this episode. I'm going to be rapid firing Tish some of those very popular sales questions. We're going to have a Q&A right here on the Millionaire Maker Show, and Tish and I are going to talk a lot about sales and objections and where do I find leads, and answer all of your most burning questions on sales. Welcome to the show, Tish.
Thank you for having me back. It's my pleasure to be here.
Is there anything coming up for you about what you want the audience to know before we dive into this, just about you?
I just love what I do. And I think we have a lot of similar thought processes around sales. And I'm just not your traditional sales trainer, sales coach. I love to make sure that people can be their authentic selves and still rock out their business as it pertains to sales. So I'm just ready to get rolling.
Now, you went through a lot of other sales training in your life. Like, you've done like all of the popular ones and all of that. Is that correct? Can you tell
That
me a
is
little bit
correct.
more about that?
Yeah, I have. And what I found is I remember sitting in sales training, especially before I really got into sales myself when I was back in the staffing world and I was doing sales. I just didn't see myself as a sales professional, but sitting in those sessions feeling like this is ridiculous or it's just not me, or I would never say that. I would never do it. And so when I started doing training, I just felt, okay, there's got to be a way to get people in a place where they can have great revenue and still feel like themselves and not feel like it's dialing for dollars, and not feel like it's just the traditional old school way of doing things. Now, the work has to be done, but it's just, I feel like there's a different way to do it.
Yeah. What would you say is like the number one thing that is old school versus not the way you want to be doing things?
Yeah, when I go in to do work, especially with like personal services companies, these people who are just like, they love what they do. They're very passionate. And the thought of getting on the phone and making 200 calls in the next couple of hours to try to get 5 cells, it would completely repulse them. And that's something that I remember being taught before, and I still hear it, that it's literally just a numbers game. And again, there's some truth to it, but there's just a different way of approaching it. So that old school, just dial for dollars, get as many calls as you can get in. There's just a better way, I think, of doing things now. That's what I would say.
Yeah, there is. There is. In terms of that, so when you're dialing for dollars, that is to me that says you don't have a very great or strong lead pool. So what is your
Right.
favorite place to get warm leads?
So my favorite place to get warm leads, in all honesty, is in front of a room, whether it's a virtual room, whether it's on a stage, whether it's in a networking environment, because I personally know that when I engage with someone and I allow them to be able to share with me who they are and I get to share with them who I am, it enables me to be able to easily showcase my expertise, right? So that's one of my favorite places, but you can do that on social. You don't have to do it in person. You can do it from your office, and you just want to engage people in such a way to where they see you're the person who can solve the problem they're currently having. Those are my favorite ways, in person or either way, but getting in front of people.
Yeah, and because you have the intimacy factor, right? Like social
Yeah,
media is like 4 steps away, where like a live event, you're gonna be able to close a lot of people because they like can look you in the eye and the intimacy really helps with sales more than anything. So I always recommend if people are struggling for sales, you go to a live event, go to a live
yes.
networking situation, and it will cut the time between meeting someone and actually closing a sale down quite a bit.
Absolutely. I met someone yesterday and had a call with them this morning. So it's like you really can cut that down tremendously. Now, do you still have to do some of the work? Sometimes, yeah, but it takes away all of that. I'm going to watch you for 2 weeks and see if you're even the real deal. And then I need to have 14 discovery calls with you. It takes all of that out of the mix and allows people to really determine quickly if you can help them solve their problems. So I love it. I love it.
Uh, Yeah, amen. Okay, so let's get to the sales call itself. Okay, that's the thing that scares everybody, or that
Yeah.
everybody doesn't. Everybody feels a little something about those if they don't have the expertise and the tool belt, like a woman like yourself. So, what do you do before a sales call to get ready?
Yeah, I make sure I know, number 1, what my goal is, because a lot of people get on calls and they don't really know what's the purpose of this call. What am I leading them to? What am I gonna talk to them about? What's the goal for them? What are they trying to solve? So I first of all make sure I have a blueprint for the call. Where are we going? Where am I taking them? What are we talking about? I also want to make sure I know who I'm talking to, because the way I talk to someone who's looking for one thing is not going to be the same way I'm going to talk to someone else, right? Whether it's a sales coach or a sales leader, rather, who wants help with their actual sales team, opposed to an entrepreneur who really just wants to learn how to sell. That's a totally different conversation. So I find out, who am I speaking with? Where am I taking them? And then I got to do some work for me. I don't know about you, Lindsay, because you're uber confident and you just express yourself in such a way that's just like you always know what to say. I definitely come across that way, but it's not always the case. So I do some work for myself and I make sure that I'm in a good headspace, that I'm not having doubts. I'm not thinking of myself less than I ought to, if you will. So that doesn't come across on a call, because I believe people can both easily identify that desperation, but they can also easily identify when you're not sure of yourself. And they're not going to buy from you if you're not convinced. So I do a little bit of personal head work for myself before I jump on a call as well.
Yeah, I do a lot of personal head work. Like my morning routine is about personal head work,
Yep.
Tish. So I'm with you on that. My routine, it changes based on like where I am in life and what I'm needing. What does your current pre-sales call routine look like today?
Yeah, so it's for me, because I'm basically doing sales calls all day. For me, my morning, I call it my W's. Call it my I do worship, I do word, I do workout, I do well, and then I go to work. And so that's like my day on a regular basis. I don't just jump into my work day. I used to, and I was like, why am I struggling? What's going on? Why am I feeling out of sort? And when I added those components, again, spending some quiet time, I walk in the morning. So I'm taking time in the morning. I
Another
don't have that.
W.
Yeah, what's that? Another
Another
W. Yeah,
W.
another W. Yeah. I walk in the morning, part is part of my workout, and that's just quiet time for me. It's time for me to meditate. It's time for me to talk to God and hear from Him. And then I go and I read my word, and then I get into the place where I look at my numbers. What do I need? What are my goals? That's the wealth part. And then I get into my work day. And then again, I'm just making sure that I'm in a good space from a mental perspective. And I know what I'm talking about. I know where we're going. Every call for that day has to have a purpose. Otherwise, what's the reason for getting on those calls?
Makes sense. Makes sense. Okay, so you get on a sales call. What's the first thing you usually say? What's your go-to line, Tish?
So for me, I want to know what's the reason that either they scheduled the call with me or that they accepted my invitation to a call. Because some people are just being polite, and I want to know that right up front. I want to know, are you interested in what I do? Are you coming with questions? Are you kicking tires? Are you just trying to figure out who does what? And so I normally want to find out from them, what was the reason for you saying yes to this call? Or what was the reason for you scheduling this call? And then I also know I have my general blueprint, but now I have a GPS to know how to guide that call from there.
Makes sense. That's also my favorite first question too. We share that, Tish. I love that question. Yeah, it
Yeah.
can really without you setting any like expectations out for them or anything. You can just hear straight up from them after a little bit of like, how's the weather in XYZ? Why are you on this call?
Yeah, for sure. And that's the whole thing for me. It's like setting it up because sometimes I find, and I have clients that come to me this way, and I'm sure you do as well. When they come to me and I ask them this very question, it's okay, so give me an idea of your journey. What does the client journey look like? And they say, I talk to them and I sell them this, or I ask them if they want to buy this in a nutshell. And I'm like, oh, you're getting ahead of this. You mean you're jumping the line there, meaning you're not really sure if number one, they're an ideal client for you, if in fact they need what you have to offer. And why do they even say yes to this call? Because that's going to really determine how you proceed with it. And otherwise, you're finding that you're constantly having missteps and you don't really know why when you don't have these things in place up front.
Yeah, and I think you said something real key there, Tish, which is how do you even know if they're a real client for you? Like a lot
Yeah.
of times people are like, I'll just take anybody and this sounds great. And if they ended up on my calendar, then they must be a great client for me. But a big shift for me was when I was like, no, I'm actually interviewing people to see if I
Yes.
can help them. And you show up in in this energy of it's a no till it's a yes instead of it's a yes till it's a no.
And you know what? That is so crazy because, and I say crazy in a good way, because a lot of times people feel like they almost are coming to the call to beg someone to work with them, opposed to seeing if they're a good fit. Because I've learned over the years, I've been doing this for 14 years. And I have gotten some clients, Lindsay, that I wish I could have gone back and said, wait a minute, maybe we're not a good fit for each other.
Sure.
And it's after the fact. And so now I'm qualifying. So I'm interviewing them as much as they're technically interviewing me to determine if, in fact, I want to work with them before I'm really trying to sell them on anything. Cause that's the worst thing in the world to get a client that you basically can't stand working with. That's the worst thing.
And and honestly, you close more people that way anyway because,
Yeah.
like, you're not chasing and you're not desperate, but, like, people always want to be wanted. So, like, just showing up in that energy can just help the whole sales call anyway and allow you to keep control over the sales call instead of, "I really hope they say yes," you know?
Yeah. And I don't know about you, but I know for me, there was a period of time where I felt that way, where it was before you get on the call, you're please let
Of
them say
course.
yes. Please. Number one, that energy, as I said, it's very evident in it and almost always comes across with that desperation. And no one wants that. But number two, it puts you in a power position when you come to the call with, let me see if in fact number one, can I help this person? Number two, are they a good fit? It shifts the energy of the conversation. And I believe people want to be around those who they think are have their stuff together, if you will, know what they're there to accomplish. And it really shifts the energy and it causes people to want to say yes in a way that they might not have before.
Yeah, and it's just you show up, you have your script and you guide the call, and it's not just we're on just to chit chat, but like the more professional you are and the more process and structured you are, the more they're like, I want to work with somebody who has
Yeah.
the system. I want to be in that. In that.
What's really funny is all of the things that happen before that first call are so crucial. So, for instance, and I was laughing because I saw you did the same thing. When we were planning for this call, I got a reminder and then I got another, this is what we're going to be talking about. Those types of things, believe it or not, set up your call because what happens for me often is people come to the call and they'll say something like, okay, all the things I saw happening before I came to this call, can you help me do that? Can you show me how I can really be better prepared for my calls or help me to make my clients see that I'm a professional? So it's like even those things really play into how people will view you when you get on the call. And then you're in a better place because you're just better prepared and you're ready to dive in and find out if you can help these people.
Yeah, and I know this is something that we share is it's not about the sales call. Like sales started a long
Long
time ago
before.
and every all these
Yeah.
other touch points. Like it's just one little blip in the whole relationship. It's not just about the sales call.
For sure, all of it, and sometimes people will say, "So when do you actually start the sales call?" I'm like, "When I meet them." When I meet them, it's not when
Yeah.
we get on a Zoom call, it's not when we have a telephone call. When I meet them, it's I'm already in the process of identifying if they're a potential new client. I'm identifying whether I can serve them. I also have these avatars in my head all the time. And so I know for certain within the first few seconds of talking to someone, are they an ideal client for me? And if I don't foresee that right off, the likelihood of me even scheduling the call is a little bit lower. It doesn't mean I never schedule it, but it's a little bit lower because it's like I don't really need to talk to them about sales, at least. I might be able to help them in another way, but being super clear on who you serve, and we've talked about this recently, it's like getting that clarity actually draws people into your sphere. It changes the game and it causes you to be in that sales process way before you actually get on the call.
Yeah. What other ideas we talked about sending reminder emails about meetings. What other ideas are for you or happen before a sales call that you can give us?
So what I will do is I'll begin to ask them questions. So one of my stop points on my, when people schedule with me to have a discovery call is I ask them, what is it that you really want to walk away with from this call? What is the thing that you're really coming to this call needing? So number one, it gives me the ability to again be better prepared, but it also gets them in the mindset of, oh, we're going to be talking about my specific problem, right? Or she really is concerned about what I'm struggling with right now, opposed to she's just going to get on the call and poke around until she finds something that she might be able to sell me on. So it shifts the game. Being very intentional with those questions, I think really makes a big difference. And then I also like to share with them maybe a case study, share with them what's possible for them. So again, they can come to the call with a very different outlook than if they just were like, oh, I wonder what we're going to talk about when we get on this call.
Okay, so you send them a couple of emails or at least one email before after they schedule the call and before the call actually takes place to just have this other connection point.
Absolutely. I have found that number one, very seldom do people schedule a discovery call with me and not show up. But if it's a first touch point call and I've not had a chance to be in a room with them, I found that if we have at least 4 touch points before that call, even if it's just reminders, the likelihood of them keeping that call is so much higher. It's something like 60% higher than if we just let them schedule and then just hope and pray that they show up. It really makes a big difference. And they feel like they've been literally like they've been touched, if you will, opposed to just scheduled and left them alone.
I like that. So 4 times is like a real good number there. People like to grab onto something like that. And that seems like a lot, but it's not. Like you got to send these reminders and you want to be in their inbox and you want to tell them you're looking forward to the call and all this kind of thing.
Yeah, all of those things. And again, it may feel like it's not that big of a deal, but it's those little things that really make a big difference for the person. And it also showcases what's possible when they work with you. So I love those things. And I know for certain that people that I work with also tend to love them.
Yeah. Okay, so let's talk a little bit now about we're on the sales call. We ask our first amazing question, which is why are you on this call? Talk to me about other questions. What are your favorite other questions to find out what this prospect needs? Do you follow a specific methodology or what does that look like for you?
I definitely do. I also set the call up. So I let them know what you can expect from this time together. And I also want to clarify how much time I'm going to need because the last thing I want, Lindsay, in this as well is to be like, knee deep in this conversation and you're just like, yes, they're understanding what's possible. I think they really believe that they see themselves as part of this program. And then they say something like, oh man, Tish, I gotta jump. I have another call. Or I got another meeting or whatever. So what I will do is I will literally tell them, okay, we're gonna be together for about 30, 45 minutes. Is that still a good time for you? Does that still work for you? Basically making sure they know this is how much time we need. And if they're gonna need to jump off in 25 or 30 minutes, I'm gonna probably want to reschedule with them. So I set it up to where they know what and I'm not caught off guard with them needing to jump for some reason or other, right? And then I also tell them, and I said it this morning when I was talking to a prospective client, I'm going to ask you a lot of questions. So just be ready. I'm going to ask you a lot of questions, but they're very intentional. Please know that I'm asking them so I can know if, in fact, I'm a good person that can actually help you solve these problems. And then I'll ask them, is that okay? Are you okay with that? Or you're not going to get irritated by me asking you all these questions, right? And for most people, it makes them feel like I am an expert because I ask questions. Because
Yeah.
how do I propose a solution to something I don't clearly understand? So I'll ask them those things or I'll tell them what I'm going to be doing. And then I will ask them what are their goals and have them kind of share with me what are their goals? What is your current biggest concern? And where do you want to be in the next, let's just say 90 days, according to from a revenue perspective? And then try to figure out where are you now compared to where that goal is that you just shared with me and what's the gap and kind of help them to see the whole process for me is to not only to clarify and gain information, but also to ensure that the client or the prospective client understands where they are and what they need. Because if I see it, but they don't see it, it doesn't matter. But if they can see, okay, I want to make $400,000 this year and I'm only at 95, there's a gap. And what are we going to do to help you to make sure you can actually attain that? Is it even possible? Is it realistic? So I'm asking questions to gain information, but also to paint a picture for them.
Yeah, I always view it like this is that a prospect will always believe what they say. They will never believe anything you say. So you have to get
Yeah.
this out of their mouth. If
Yes.
that's through questions or whatever that is, it has to come from them, not from you. Otherwise, you're convincing, and that's just not a good
Yeah.
sales tactic.
So true. So true. I completely agree.
Yes. Yeah. Okay. Okay. And then it also sounds like you're really trying to quantify whatever they're saying. So you don't take these fluffy answers, but you're like, what does that really mean? Quantify that for me. How many hours is that? What is that
Yeah.
exactly kind of thing? And how important? Because I think a lot of times people will speak in generalities and they can get away with it. But like
Mhm.
on a sales call, the more specific you are, the more their reality is staring back at them.
Yeah, no doubt. And one of the things I think is also really crucial during these calls is to, when they're asking them these very poignant questions, right? Very important questions. It's like, how does that make you feel? Trying to get them to
Yeah.
understand from an emotional standpoint, not just how much is this costing you, because we know it's costing you dollars, but how much is this costing you from a stress perspective? How much is it costing you from a time perspective not to have this particular solution actually taken care of? Because when I can see it from that perspective, I'll pay what I need to pay in order to get my time back in most cases. Or I had a really serious illness a couple of years ago. And it's if I can take the stress off of me, I know that I'm going to be willing to make an investment in that arena as well. So it's like helping them to see what the real costs are, the hidden costs are compared to what they might be seeing the investment.
Yeah, and I feel like a lot of people get stuck there. They feel like, "Oh, I can ask those kind of questions. That's super nosy. They're going to think that I'm all up in their business." But I have found the
Yeah.
more I'm all up in their business, the more they appreciate it because you actually are getting to the crux of the problem. And if you're not like holding back because you're afraid you're going to step on toes, you can actually close more and understand more about your clients.
No doubt. Absolutely. And again, I tell them, and I'll tell them at the front end, I'm going to ask you a lot of questions. Some of them might even seem personal, but there's a purpose for these questions. So I get buy in from it and I
Yeah.
want to know where they are and what's really going on because I do care. And that's the difference between, I guess, people like us and some of what we considered earlier. We're talking about like old school, just so I get to as many calls as you can. I really do care. I really do care. And so if I need to dive in deeper to make sure that I can help them, I'm going to dive in deeper because at the end of the day, I want them to get the solution that they need. It brings me such tremendous joy when I have a client who has increased their revenue, who's gotten out of fear and really started asking for the sale, who's gotten past whatever barrier they've erected for themselves previously. I really do care. And so I'm asking the questions because I care, not because I want to be nosy. I really do want them to get the solution that they need.
And I find that most people really like, they'll share a lot of that information.
Sure will.
Like, they're, like, okay with being like, "Yeah, my mom died and this sucks and ba 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 ba." Like,
Mm,
they also have no one in their lives, like, that will listen to this kinda thing. And so,
yeah.
like, they actually are okay with it.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And I think it's really important for us as sales professionals, and I know we wouldn't do it, but I definitely have seen it before. When people prey on that information and kind
Right.
of take advantage of the fact that they're maybe in a vulnerable place. And so it's like there's a delicate balance there of really understanding where they really are and what they need and being really sensitive to the fact that I can help them and I know I can help them, but still not taking advantage of the fact of where they are in their life right now, if you will.
Yeah,
It's
I mean,
a
that's the
little
thing. That's
tricky,
why sales sometimes doesn't have the best rap. Yeah, it's because it's such a fine line. It is such a fine line.
no doubt.
Okay, so we ask all these questions, we find out what our prospect wants. How do you make the turn, Tish, from I've asked you all these questions and now I want to give you my perfect offer that will help you with all of your problems? How do you make that turn?
Yeah, for me, of course, I go through and make sure that I'm clear and I literally recap and I'm gonna making sure I understand the problem. I make sure that they give me their own synopsis of what I've understood and make sure that we're on the same page. And then in a nutshell, it's not like completely direct, but if in a nutshell, I ask them if I can help you to solve this problem, right? And it makes sense from a price perspective, right? If I can help you to solve the problem and you can actually invest in this, what would stop you from moving forward right now? Because I want to find out where's their urgency. Was this something you're wanting to take care of right now because you want the pain to stop? Is it something you're just thinking about and you're like, maybe next month, maybe in 3 months or 6 months? So I want to find out if we can solve this problem for you today, would you be really ready to get enrolled? And what can we do to get you enrolled today? So I go right in and make sure that they are ready to move forward. And if not, I want to find out what's stopping them from moving forward at this particular time.
I like that. I like that. Okay. Give us your best tips on handling objections. But Tish, I love everything you said. I would love to sign up for your program, but I can't afford it.
Yeah. And there's so many different ways. I can give you some very blanket, obviously, but this is the thing. I will literally come back to what they said. So I'm either using a summary. So the cool thing about using these types of platforms, especially like Zoom, is that it can actually do a transcription for you while you're having the conversation. And I will literally, if I'm not writing it down, I'll come back and say, no. So I understand that, Lindsay. You expressed to me about the fact that this is making it's really not only impacting your business, but it's impacting your health or it's impacting your marriage because you're in a bad mood all the time, whatever. So I will just remind them of what they said and make sure that I didn't misunderstand that, because when I understood that earlier, it sounded to me like this is it's a big deal and it's really causing you problems. So tell me then, is that cost greater than this? Which is more important to you right now? And helping them to again see that though it may not be easy, you may not even see how you're going to do it right now. Does it make sense for you to stay in the situation that you're in and continue to suffer with whatever it's costing you? Or does it make sense for you to make the investment and shift everything as well as because of what we do, increase your revenue, increase your sales so that you can do things from a different perspective from this point forward. So for me, it's like where you are now compared to where you want to be and what cost is greater for you right
I like that. I like that. Okay, so you guys, we come to an end of that, and they can't afford it right now or whatever. So what does the end of that call look like? So it's a not right now, one of those calls. What are you saying to them to continue the momentum and continue? They not just see you later. I'm never talking to you again.
Yeah. I will always schedule a follow-up call while I have them on the call.
Yeah.
I'd never give them you know what, when you're ready, When you're
They're not
ready, give
yeah,
me a call. Yeah, they're not ready. They're never gonna be ready. And so I will give them and sometimes I'll give them an opportunity. So for instance, the call I was on earlier today, just based on what they need, again, I asked so many questions. I really had a good understanding of where they are in their business and what they need. And so I gave them an option that they probably hadn't considered. I asked them, what would it look like if maybe we did this on a rollout opposed to you starting the entire process right now? Because my thing is I want them to commit to something. And
sure.
if you're able to commit to something and then they start seeing results, then they'll make the steps forward in whatever program I'm offering to them. And so I asked them that, and she was like, "Sure, that's a great idea. I hadn't even thought about that." And so it's okay. Let's jump on a call on Monday and work out the plan to make that happen. So she wasn't ready to buy right this moment today, but I was literally like, we have another way of making this happen for you. Let's get this done. And so that was the way that I dealt with that particular one. But even if it's not, I'm not ready to do anything right now. I will say, you know what? Let's jump on a call on Thursday, and I'll ask them, okay, if you're not ready to start right now, and you're thinking maybe a month, maybe 60 days, whatever, what's going to change between now and then that's going to help you to be more ready? And most people, they don't have an answer for that. And so my thing is to help them to see that if nothing changes now, nothing will change at all.
And
And and
yeah.
so yeah, and so my goal is normally to get them to acknowledge that and then start something right now. I don't do a lot of downsells, but I definitely do have one that works really well for the client that's not ready to step into our larger packages. But I want to make sure that if they are someone that I know I can help, I feel like I have an obligation to give them something to help them to make that shift, to start making that shift. If they're ready to do that's my goal. But if for whatever reason they're not, I'm still getting them on the call within the next 7 days because the longer we wait for that follow-up call, the less likely they're going to move forward at all. And so I want to get them on a call as quickly as possible to re-engage.
Yeah, so I think this is what in summary, you gave us a ton of really great ideas there. It's you always gotta give them a next step. So, you gotta get them on a call, number 1. "Hey, can we schedule a follow-up call?" If they're like, "No, not right now, I'll let you know." We always wanna give them something else. So for
Yeah,
us, "Can I send you a podcast episode that can really help you with some of the problems we had today?" Or, "Can I invite you to my next workshop?" Or whatever.
absolutely.
Keep some things going. Like, you don't just hang up and say goodbye. Because 'Cause you've asked all these questions, you can help them in some way. And, like,
Right.
you want to because you've heard their story, basically.
Yeah, yeah, and if for me, I do a lot of networking both in person and virtually. So I will also ask them, "Can I take you along?" I love to do networking dates. I'm like, "All right, why don't you hang out with me? We're gonna if they're local, I'm like, "I'm going to XYZ event next week. Why don't we hang out there?" Like you said, if I'm gonna be speaking somewhere, I'm definitely inviting them to come. If I have a workshop I'm putting on, I'm definitely inviting them to do that, and then obviously giving them access to the podcast, giving them access to my newsletter. I want to stay in front of them in some way, shape, or form.
I love that, Tish. I love it. Tish, it has been another awesome episodes talking about sales today. Thank you so much for sharing your expertise. I've really
Oh,
enjoyed it.
you. I enjoyed it as well. Thanks so much for having me.
Yes, before I let you go, I'm gonna turn the time over to you. Let us know how to find you and anything else you want the audience to know.
Absolutely. You can reach me on all social platforms at Tish Times. My website is tishtimes.com. And if you go to my resource page, we have some amazing resources that you can download and be able to use some of the things we talked about today as well. So thank you, Lindsay,
I love it, Tish. We'll see you later. Thank you so much.
for sure.
Thank you for listening to the Millionaire Maker Show with online business consultant and creator of the Millionaire Maker Funnel, Lindsay Anderson. Make sure you subscribe so you don't miss any future episodes. Until next time.
Thank you so much for joining me on this episode of The Lindsay Anderson Show. I hope you enjoyed this episode as much as I enjoyed interviewing Tish. I know her and I can talk so much about sales. It's so important. We're so passionate about it. It doesn't have to be icky. It can be something that's authentic and something where you are really showing up as sales as a service, serving those individuals who have the very problem that you solve. If you enjoyed this episode of the Millionaire Maker Show, please leave us a review on any of the streaming platforms where you're listening to this. It's the reviews that allow us to continue to put out high quality information so that you're able to grow your business and get more sales on social media. Thank you so much for joining me. Until next time, I'm Lindsay Anderson. Cheers to you and your success.